In this video, we're going to take an in-depth look at the Workmate 425 and the Worx Pegasus Workbenches. Having produced over 50 videos on the Workmate 425, I have to admit I came into this project with somewhat of a bias towards the Workmate 425. However, having worked with the Pegasus during the production of this video, I must say I'm impressed with its functionality. So let's take a close look at these two highly functional workbenches. The Workmate 425 currently retails for about $119, weighs in at 36 pounds, which is about 6 more pounds than the Pegasus. It does have a capacity, in other words, it can hold as much as 550 pounds on the bench top, and it does come with a 2-year warranty. The Pegasus currently retails for $99, weighs in at 30 pounds, has a capacity on the bench top of 300 pounds, and has a warranty of 6 years. Now let's take a look at the exterior of these two benches. The Workmate 425 comes with 4 bench dogs. It does have 30 holes or dog holes in the bench. Each one is 22 millimeters. And the Workmate 425 comes in 3 panels. The first panel is not removable, that's the clamp, and we'll show you more about that in a minute. Then the second and third panels, middle or back panels, are removable, and I'll show you how those work in just a little bit. There is a handle on the front that allows you to do vertical clamping. I'll demonstrate that later on. There are 2 handles that are supposed to be synchronized. This is my personal unit, they're not synchronized. It doesn't come with a shelf, but you can cut out a piece of cardboard or masonite and put it in there. It does have a step for stabilization and slots to put your tools down inside while you're working. Now let's look at the worktop dimensions on the 425. So on the width, it's coming in just a little bit over 29 inches. And let's look at the depth. It's coming out just shy of 21 inches at 20 3/4. That's with the clamp closed all the way down. So those are the worktop dimensions on the 425. It's important to know the clamping capabilities of these two benches so you know whether either one of them are going to work with your projects. The front to back clamping capability on the Workmate 425 is 18.5 inches. And then from left to right, without any wedges, is 26.25 inches. That does not take into account that you're going to have to use wedges to clamp from left to right. Now let's look at the storage dimensions on the 425. The width is 29 inches. And the height, including the handles, is 33.5 inches. And the depth, including the feet, is 9.5 inches. So those are the storage dimensions on the Workmate 425. Now let's take a closer look at the Pegasus. It does come with 2 clamps, one on either side. And it also comes with 4 bench dogs. There are 16 bench dog holes in this bench, each one being 3/4 inch in diameter, which is pretty much standard for the industry. And it does come with these loops on all 4 corners that allows you to connect another Pegasus to any one of the 4 sides to create a larger workspace. I also like the fact that it does have these slots for storing parts while you're working on your project, something I wish the Workmate had. And then underneath, it does come with a shelf. It'll suspend about 20 pounds on there. So that's a quick overview of the Pegasus Workbench. Now let's look at the dimensions of the Pegasus benchtop. The width is right at 31 inches. And the depth, or front to back, is 25 inches. As you can see, my scale's not long enough, but it is 25 inches front to back. So those are the dimensions on the bench top for the Pegasus. Now let's look at the clamping capacity of the Pegasus. From left to right, you have right at 22¼ inches. That does not include any wedges you might use to hold things in place. From front to back, using the clamps, you're looking right at 18½ inches. So those are the clamping capabilities of the Pegasus. Storage is always a consideration, so let's take a look at the dimensions on the Worx Pegasus. It's 27 inches wide with the clamps considered, 6 inches deep, and then it comes in at right about 35 inches tall. So those are the storage dimensions on the Pegasus. Now let's look at the setup and breakdown of these two benches. On the 425, you got to kick out the bottom set of legs, and then flip it up on those legs, and then using the levers on the side, extend it all the way up. Now to put it away or put it back in storage position, you just reverse the process, press the levers, bring it down, and collapse all 4 legs, and it's ready to be stored. I must admit the setup of the Pegasus is a lot easier. In one move, you pulled it out and everything's locked into place. Next, you take the clamps, set them into the slots, slide it into position, then lock the handle down, and do the same thing on the other side. The bench dogs are stored on the shelf below, and you can put those in place anytime you want. So that's the setup on the Pegasus. The takedown of the Pegasus is just as easy as putting it together. Take the bar clamps out and store them on the clips on the side. And if you were using the bench dogs, obviously you want to store them in a safe place on the shelf underneath. And then there's 4 tabs, 2 on each side, so press those 2, that collapses there. And then the other 2 on the other side. Collapse the bottom shelf, and you're ready for storage. While the dog holes for the Workmate 425 are 22 millimeters, they will accommodate all the basic clamps that you might want to use with your workbench. The dog holes on the Pegasus are all 3/4 inch, which means they'll accommodate all the basic clamp types. Now let's take a look at the clamping capabilities of these two benches. Probably the most common workpiece you'll be using is the typical 2x4. In this shot I've clamped it with the bench dogs, and you notice the bench dogs are just below the surface, so if you wanted to do some sanding here on that top surface, you could do so. So that's clamping with the Workmate 425 with bench dogs. If you're looking for greater stability or more clamping power, then you can set the 2x4 down in between the first and second panels and hold it in place a lot better. This also will give you greater surface area on the wood rather than just the bench dog. So if you have a delicate piece, you're not going to mar it or dent it with the bench dogs. And of course you can lay the 2x4 on its side so it sits flush with the bench top, and you can work with it at a different angle. Now let's look at clamping 2x4s on the Pegasus. In this configuration, we're using the bar clamp and 2 dogs to hold it in place. In this configuration, we're using the clamps only, and this pushes it closer to the edge of the bench. So depending on how you want to position it on the bench, you either use the clamps by themselves or the clamps in combination with the bench dogs. And here's the 2x4 clamped on the edge using the clamps. And here's the 2x4 clamped on edge using a combination of the clamp as well as 4 bench dogs. Occasionally you'll need to clamp your workpieces in a vertical position. So let's take a look at that in these two benches. I've taken the center panel out of the 425 and then clamped it into place, and then used 2 clamps to hold this workpiece into place. So you may have those situations where you have to hold something in a vertical position, and the Workmate allows you to do that in this configuration. You also may have larger workpieces that you need to clamp or hold into an upright position. And using the Workmate 425, you can slide it down in between the panels and it'll definitely hold it into place for you. You may also have a larger piece that won't fit down in between the panels on the Workmate simply because it's too wide. So you can hold it on the edge as you see here. So maybe you need to do some sanding or painting or something like that, and or drilling, and this will hold it into place on the edge just like this. You can set a Workmate at 2 additional heights. The one that I'm showing you here is with the bottom legs collapsed, so it drops it down quite a bit. So if you have a larger workpiece like you see here, you can clamp it into place, lower it down, and move it to a level that's convenient for you. So that's the second level right there with the legs collapsed. And the third and final level is with the bench collapsed all the way down to the floor, just like you see here. So again, if you have a larger awkward piece, you want to lower it down to a different level that makes it convenient for you for drilling or painting or sanding, whatever you're going to do. Collapsing it all the way to the floor can give you the level that you're looking for. Now let's take a look at vertical clamping on the Pegasus. In this configuration, we're using just the clamps themselves. And it's very stable for this workpiece, so whether you're sanding or drilling or painting, whatever you want to do, this will definitely hold it into place for you. This configuration uses a combination of bench dogs as well as the clamps themselves. And if you tighten it down well enough, it's surprisingly stable. Now let's take a look at clamping larger workpieces in a horizontal position. On the Workmate 425, there's a little orange handle that I'm going to pull up here in just a second. I pull that back. That allows me to lift that first panel up. And then all I have to do is crank it down to hold it into place. This provides a great deal of stability for the workpiece. Then to take it out, all you have to do is reverse the process, loosen the Vise grip, pull up on the little handle and slide it back into place, and then move your workpiece to where you want it to be. Horizontal clamping on the Pegasus is very simple. Just pull out your clamps, put your workpiece on the workbench, and then clamp it in a horizontal position, and you're ready to go. One thing that the Pegasus does that the Workmate does not do is it converts into a sawhorse. In here I've just put 2 scraps of 2x4 in to demonstrate the slots that are open at the top. But in this configuration, the sawhorse will support about 1,000 pounds according to the specifications. So you have a sawhorse that will support 1,000 pounds, plus you have a little tray or a little shelf underneath for storage. If you've seen any of my table saw reviews, you know that I always like to look under the hood, and I want to do the same thing with these benches. Here we're looking at the Workmate 425, all the stamped steel construction. The Workmate panels are constructed out of 3/4 inch laminated bamboo, and some different angles on the undercarriage of the 425. And that's part of the clamping mechanism on the right hand side. And again, another view on the left hand side. It does incorporate a worm gear to do the clamping. So that's the undercarriage of the 425. Now let's look under the hood of the Pegasus. So there are the leg supports right there. Both sides. The underside of the shelf. And now you can see the tubing for the supports and the clip for holding the clamps when it's folded into place or in storage. And then you can see the underside of the bench top itself. So that is under the hood for the Pegasus. So what do you do if the working surface of your Workmate 425 is damaged, or you want to replace it, or you want to customize it? You can do that with 2x8 pieces of lumber and cutting them to size and then drilling them as you see here. I have another whole video on how to do that. I'll leave the link to that in the description below. If you need to replace or customize one of the panels on the Pegasus, I'm really not sure how to do that. But you definitely can do that on the Workmate 425. Having spent some time with the Pegasus in the making of this video, I must admit I've been very impressed with the capabilities of the Pegasus workbench. Both of these benches have a lot to offer to both the professional as well as the do-it-yourselfer. If you found this video useful, please press like and share with your friends. As I mentioned earlier, I've produced more than 50 videos on the Workmate workbench, and I put the link to the playlist in the description below, so make sure you check them out. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love to have you as a subscriber. Thanks for watching, and as always, good luck on your projects.